All right. Hey, folks. So today we're going to be talking about how often you should be in the gym. Now, this is one of those things where everyone's got an opinion on it, right? And I think it's an area where there's a lot of information on the internet. And there's a hell of a lot like these days. There's so much information out there. For you guys who are just starting out or still in a gaining sort of phase, there's a ton of information out there. And it's all very well meaning. Like everyone tries to help, and you look on the internet and you can find a million different opinions and of what I believe are very well intentioned people. So you'll get sort of two camps. You get the first camp, which is like, this is what worked for me. This is the way to go. And you see it quite a lot with like things like push pull legs, like push pull legs is for life, or top set, back off set. I've talked about that in the past. And then you get the other side of the coin. You have the more enlightened guys who go, actually, none of it really matters. Just train hard. You're going to be okay. Train hard, add weight to the bar, you'll be fine. And they're both doing their best to help. One is, very dogmatic. The other one is like nothing matters, just get better. And they're both trying to help in their own way, I think. But I think there's a middle ground. It's kind of like diet, right? It's like diet. So you'll get some keto advocates going, keto is the way forward. It saved my life. Everyone needs to do it. And then you get some other people going, actually, nothing really matters. Just make sure you're in a calorie deficit. And they're both trying to help. But what tends to be more useful is perhaps the experience of what works across the averages. So what I want to present to you today is a bit about my experience on what works on average, what I've seen to work for most people in the area of how many days per week you should be training. And I think that's quite useful. So some stuff worked for me, but stuff that's worked for many of my clients over the years. Okay. And as any coach does, you sort of start to realize, okay, there are trends and strands of things that work for a large portion of people. There are always going to be outliers, and you try and account for that. But in general, this is kind of what works. So in terms of what I've seen work for training frequency, roughly 3 to 4 times a week is about right for most people. Okay, as in how many days per week you should be in the gym. Now, just to cover the extreme ends, twice a week I've seen to work quite well as well in certain cases. I have a couple of people currently on twice a week training, as in gym training, usually because they're athletes. And so they're CrossFitters, they're hockey players, they're footballers, soccer players, So training twice a week for them, full body, is actually really good because it adds to their week and it gives them training without taking away a lot of time from other things they might be doing. Because when you're a hybrid athlete, when you're trying to get stronger in the gym, also run your sport, perhaps work on your cardiovascular fitness, you've got to spread yourself on the ground a bit more thinly. So twice a week training in that case works okay. I have had other people doing 5-day-a-week training. Currently no one's doing 6-day-a-week training, but certainly 5, and I have had in the past people doing training 6 days a week. Those people, I'm not so sure it's the best option for anyone, even if they are enhanced. I think with those people, they generally are young, they've got a lot of time in their hands, and it's a situation where they probably could gain just as well on 4 days a week. It's just their personal preference is to train more often for whatever reasons they have. Now, so the good sort of compromise in practical experience is 3 to 4 times a week. If you're training 3 times a week, my personal preference for getting the most out of the sessions is full body. Full body, you can do a lot on full body. Now, full body 3 times a week is very good for multiple different types of training styles. So if you're a beginner, full body 3 times a week is great. And the beginner routine that I'm currently working on is going to be detailing something 3 times a week. Now, if you're beyond beginner stage, you can do undulating periodization quite well 3 times a week. That's the basis of my wizard book. And it's a nice system. I tend to have quite a lot of my guys training 3 times a week with that type of system. The other style is you can do a conjugate style. Again, you can do that 3 times a week. I detailed in my videos about conjugate system how you can apply a 3-day-a-week conjugate system. Works really, really well. Works great. You have an ME day, DE day, a sort of repetition recovery day. Works great. So that's another good one. So 3 times a week full body works very well. In terms of 4 times a week, you can still do full body. All the same things apply. But 4 times a week, you get the option of doing upper lower. Works pretty good. Upper lower works very, very well 4 times a week. You get a decent amount of frequency, and you also get enough sessional volume that you can accumulate quite a lot of volume for the body. So if somebody has commitments, a schedule that allows them to train 4 times a week, I generally prefer that, because you just have a lot more flexibility to do more work. And I think volume, I'm quite a big believer in trying to get as much useful volume in as you can. So onto that note, if we look at what you can accomplish with 4 sessions a week, let's say a session is anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes, right? Or 60 to 75 minutes. If you're taking reasonable rest periods, that's about anywhere between 15 to 30 sets of workout. Now, if you're taking a combination of sort of shorter rest periods with longer rest periods, you can probably get more like 30 to 40 sets in. And so you can get more useful volume in. Now, those higher set numbers are generally when you're shortening your rest periods across the workout. And as we've seen from James Krieger's volume study and from numerous studies across the years, if you're doing more volume with shorter rest periods, it's kind of the same in the end as doing less volume with longer rest periods. I think the relationship is for very short rest periods under about 90 seconds, so about 60-second rest periods, you need about double the volume of longer rest periods of, say, 2 minutes to 3 minutes. So it all works out in the end. So it's just time in the gym. So 4 sessions a week at about 60 to 90 minutes, assuming you are working and you're not talking, generally tend to be self-limiting. And it's probably why most people settle on about 3 to 4 times a week as a workable schedule. It just works out that way. If you're in the gym for about that long, 60 to 90 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week, and you're working, you're not chatting, you're not wasting time, then in general, you're going to probably land on roughly the right set number. So yeah, guys training 5 or 6 days a week, it seems to be like the problem with that is you can get away with a ton of volume and a ton of training intensity. And it usually ends up in needing quite a lot of deloads and various sort of intensity measures, or it's just when people are like very young and they can recover from it. So 5 to 6 days a week, it's one of those which the problem is not inherent in like the days themselves. So just splitting up all your workload and going into the gym 6 days a week is not inherently tiring. What's more tiring is the fact that you end up pushing yourself a lot more. You end up just sneaking in more volume because you can. And because the volume is split out over 6 training sessions rather than 4, you end up being able to put more intensity into those sessions as well. So each individual set gets more and more work. And the type of guys who want to be in the gym 5 or 6 days a week, they're usually the types of guys or girls who want to push the envelope. That's what they're there for. They're saying, look, coach, sign me up 6 days a week. Let's do it. And so it's very difficult to hold them back. They end up getting frazzled and anxious quite a lot. So that's the first part of the video, is what I've seen to work. Now, the next part of the video is what can you actually do to benefit you if you are just restricting yourself to 3 to 4 days a week? Because this is another big conversation. Now, while most people come to me with sort of physique goals, or muscle gain, fat loss, recomposition, whatever, you do end up talking to them about more well-rounded things as well. So most people, I feel, could probably do 3 to 4 days a week and work on other things. And that's important because I think it makes you a better athlete. And this is another thing I'll say from my experience. People who tend to be athletic tend to gain muscle better. I don't know why, but I've seen this time and time again, particularly in beginners, because you see it happen so fast. A beginner who comes to me with a tremendous sporting background, so let's say they've played tennis, ran, biked, jogged, all that kind of stuff, they tend to gain ridiculously fast. Ridiculously. Beginners who come to me who don't have all that stuff in check, they tend to struggle massively. So one of the things that I implement now with pretty much all my clients is I like to get them to become more well-rounded. And so the first thing we look at is an aerobic cardio element. I just tend to find trainees who are doing other things other than the gym tend to gain better, which seems counterintuitive, but it's 100% true. I noticed this early on, many years ago, that the guys who were bulking and gaining weight, they tended to gain weight and muscle better if they were active. So guys who were doing 10 to 15 to 20,000 steps per day, you'd think was a net negative, but it wasn't. Those are the guys who were gaining muscle more consistently and better. I noticed that initially. And later on, I started to see these trends. Generally, guys who are sporty and active and girls who come from a sporty and active background, they tend to do a lot better when it comes to actually getting into the gym and progressing on the weights. So what I now encourage people to do is 4 things. Okay, 4 things. In addition to a sound weightlifting schedule. I guess we could say 5. The first one is some type of other physical activity. Run, swim, bike, do some kind of sport. It's important. That's the first thing. So be more well-rounded, do a sport. And I don't just mean do endless amounts of treadmill cardio, like actually have a goal, you know? Yeah, sure. You know, you're a bodybuilder. You want to be a bodybuilder. Cool. Great. Have something else going alongside it as well, you know? If not, then yeah, maybe you might want to do some cardio on the side, but generally have something which holds your interest. The next thing is prehab. Yeah, that's important. Make sure you're doing all the things necessary to keep yourself, your body healthy as you continue to get stronger. Remember, if you're currently benching, say, a plate aside for a set of 8, and you want to be at the point where you're benching 3 plates aside, think of all the things you need to do to ensure you're healthy getting up to that point. It's not enough just to say, I'm going to add some weight to the bar and, you know, magic will happen over the course of the next 3 years. Like, you are probably going to need to do some prehab. You're probably going to need to break up your training to various modalities where you do high repetition work, low repetition work, specific prehab, pay attention to various things. So get involved with some type of prehab. And that might involve an extra 10 minutes before the session to do some sort of warm-up or something after the session, but become more rounded. Or maybe an extra day where you do more prehab stuff. Next thing is yoga or meditation. Do something which is going to relax you. And the common one is yoga or meditation because it allows you to switch off. But really, anything that relaxes you is good. Even reading a book. It's a lost art these days. Reading a book before bed for half an hour. It has a dual benefit of calming you down before you go to sleep, but also it takes your eyes away from, you know, light and technology. And it's a form of meditation in a sense. And the other thing which is connected to the first thing is do some type of conditioning. Yeah. I do some type of conditioning after every session now. I think it's important. And I guess the last thing is meal prep. One of the things that really, the first changes I make with someone's training is if they're training, say, 4 days a week, or they want to train 4, 5, 6 days a week, but they're struggling with meal prep, like the first thing you do is take a training session away. Use that time to meal prep. Okay, make what is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. You know, in terms of your training, is it just going to be piling on more volume because Brad Schoenfeld told you got to do 45 sets a week? I'm being facetious about that. I'm joking, right? But like, is it going to be doing more volume because you know, whoever told you to add more volume, or is it going to be plugging the gaps into the rest of your life? Okay, do you need to sleep better? Do you need to get some conditioning work done to make sure you're actually athletic enough to train and benefit from that? Do you need to do some yoga, some meditation, or something to relax you? Do you need to do some prehab to stop you from getting injured all the time or feeling so sore? You know, it could be just something like you're sat at home doing endless amounts of leg curls with a band or whatever. Just something to protect yourself. You know, is it going to be take some time away from the gym to actually meal prep? Is it going to be literally, all right, I'm going to take a couple of days of the week out so I can actually get a part-time job so I can buy a walk-in freezer. I buy a chest freezer so I can actually prep food and I can start to have food ready for the week. Think about what else is going to plug the gaps in your entire routine. Like, we're beyond the point now where it's just training. Okay. If you're a bodybuilder, all you're going to do is train. You need to be more than that because when the body's in balance, it works a lot better. And again, I'll just say at the end, none of this is my scientific viewpoint. This is what I've seen in the trenches to work. And I'm very careful about that. When it's something which is a scientific study, I'll say it's a scientific study. And I've done less and less of those videos recently, but I used to do quite a lot of them. Maybe I'll start up again. But it's important to get people's actual experiences, what's worked for them, what's worked for many, many trainees over the years, you know, on the law of averages. So hopefully that was useful. I guess my bottom end advice is try and be well-rounded. You know, look at plugging in the gaps. And if that means taking some time away from the gym to do things which are ultimately going to increase your progress in the gym, then that's great. You know, like, yeah, sure, you can do 30 sets a week per body part, but are you doing everything necessary to actually recover from that? Or are you just doing it because it feels good? Because at that stage, it's an addiction. It's not something which is actually helpful. It's probably going to harm you in the long term. Work on your diet, work on your rest and relaxation, work on becoming more well-rounded, work on your cardiovascular capability so that you can actually do those sets properly and you can recover from those sets. So you can get the gains. Otherwise, you're just going to run yourself into the ground. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that was useful, and let me know what you think about what I've said. As I say, just my experience on what I've seen to have worked for people. All right, take care.